Today we're going to continue working on the mountain. The first thing I want to do is haul that thing back upstairs. I also want to haul the neighboring plates beside it upstairs as well, so we can start plotting out the second mountain in the mountain range. But first off, we should check out the view from up here, right? Look at that. It's pretty neat. Wow. I think it looks great. There's some things that don't look great though. For example, the lack of mountains below the winter village specifically. But it's just a matter of us getting around to building that. We did order, I think, 122 MERPs, the corner ones, when we were working on the mountain last. So we're waiting for those to arrive. And once those arrive, well, then we can continue building more mountains. But we're going to make do with what we have here today. So from the last video, I think the largest concern was the fact that we put these temples up here, and these temples are sort of the wrong scale. And we weren't able to build this mountain as tall as we wanted to because we had to leave so much space for those temples, taking away from the space that we had to make this thing go vertical. So I think the solution would be to scale the temples down and part out these temples and reuse them, or like reuse those parts to create smaller temples. That would be a shame to part out this set right here, the Temple of Spinjitsu, I believe it is. Such a valuable set, but I don't feel like ordering all of those parts to create a smaller temple. This one here has a rock foundation, and then it has stairs going up the rock foundation. That could very easily be removed from the rock foundation, like the temple itself, and that would lower the height by however many bricks that is, and that would allow us to sink that temple right down onto the mountain and just make it look a little bit better. It would sort of play better with the scale of the mountain, if you will. And same with the other one there. It also has a rock foundation. You can see there's stairs leading up to the front door there. So if, for example, we were to remove the rock foundation and actually put it on the mountain and just clean it up a bit and reduce the scale in other ways, then I think these temples would work. But yes, indeed, they are much too big for the scale of this mountain, and they're just sort of throwing it all off. And the mountain does look larger when those large buildings are removed, just like that. But we did create those ridges for structures. That was the point of this. We wanted the temples to be in behind Ninjago City, so I am going to run with that idea. I do not feel like rebuilding this mountain to eliminate those ridges to increase the height of it. I want to have some structures on the ridges. The height is going to be dedicated to the next mountain, which will be home to the Mountain View Observatory, which you can see right there. I do not feel like rebuilding this mountain. I think we've got to run with the temple idea. We're not going to give up on that, but I just think those temples need to be modified. That's something you always got to keep in mind when you're working on a Lego city, is the scale, because when you build something like this, you intend for it to be a large mountain. And it is a large mountain because we have 10 inches of height here, and then we have 27 inches of height there, so we're at 37 inches. You know, it's a pretty big mountain. Hopefully we can make this one a little bit taller. But when you mess around with the scale, for example, you wouldn't want to place a tree like that right there, or that one over there by the 8 Studs house. I would need to build a mountain that's, 20 feet tall. And I just don't have the parts. I don't have the ability to do something like that because that is absurd. Only Lego can do stuff like that in the Lego house. That I don't have the capacity of doing things like that. That's why when we built mountains in the past, we always stuck trees like this little sapling on there because it better represents scale. It is funny transporting the mountain up and down the stairs multiple times, but we like placing it in the Lego city just to visualize what it's going to look like and make sure that we got everything correct. It would be funny to build an entire mountain range and then go place it and then find out, oh no, I made it one base plate too big or whatever it may be. And that has definitely happened to us before. So I like placing it just in between the different intervals of building. So yeah, I hauled up the mountain here, and I also hauled up the neighboring plates. And you know what? The whole process, it doesn't take that long. It's like 10, 15 minutes. It would just be a lot longer if I accidentally dropped one of these things, but it's really not too bad. Now you're going to notice that there's a slop bucket right here. And in this slop bucket, is the remaining parts from the two temples. Oh my gosh. Yep, that's hard to look at. Yeah, indeed. But we got a bunch of great parts here that we can try and build another temple with, or part out and put in our inventory, or whatever it may be. We also got some stairs and signs and stuff that we got to integrate into the landscaping around the modified temples. This one here, the Temple of Spinjitsu, is finished, other than the landscaping around it and the actual placement of it. And this one up here, I can't remember what temple this is. It's not finished yet, but I did remove the bottom section of mountain, so now these just like look a lot better. You know, it's a better scale for the mountain. I think that makes more sense. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's take a closer look at this one here, the Temple of Spinjitsu. First off, here's a quick look at it before the modifications. So it was 3 stories tall, and it had those stairs and the rock work on the bottom, and it had an open back, so I wanted to close that up, remove that rock work on the bottom, and reduce its height by 1 floor. It looks pretty small, doesn't it? Pretty short, but once again, it's gonna match up better with this mountain here. It looks like I just removed the rock work and removed a floor, but there was more to it than just that. Just because when you start doing that with Lego sets, it becomes a big mess. We had to perform multiple surgeries, taking it apart, putting it together, and just trying different things to get it to this size. So of course, we've got the sliding door on both sides, so there's 2 sliding doors. And the math of this all had to change because we had to bring this pillar out 1 stud, and then we had to add an additional stud next to the door. So we had to like extract all that and sort of rebuild it. Actually, I was working on this while Mrs. Bricksie was working on another exciting project, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And then we were able to create more of these pillars so it matches on either side. I like that. And that sort of supports the awning here. This awning actually stayed the same. I don't know if you want to call it an awning. That's what I'll call it, I guess, the roof structure. This one stayed the same, but then the second floor changed. It actually increased the height of it and added more windows. And we got those sweet windows by removing the 3rd floor. So we were able to reallocate some of those windows to these ones here, which are separated by some of those rail plates, or sorry, the rail bricks. Unfortunately, we're missing 4 of them at this time. So I just put some regular 1x2s on the bottom, but it's all good. I think it works out quite nicely. And then we took the additional windows from the 3rd floor and reallocated them to the sides as well, which are built up in red, and there's dark red around the windows. And then we have the pillar in the corner there. And you'll notice that there's little handles there. That's because we jumpered some walls, and those can be removed so that we can access the interior. I didn't make it so it's modular in the sense that the floors can come apart. Rarely am I going to go in there, so I figured I would just make some panels that can be removed like that there. And I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but this is going to go up against a mountain anyway, so I didn't want to, you know, make the back too funky. And we didn't have enough consistent windows or red windows to give it more windows. That would look better, but if I start throwing like black windows in there or white, it's going to make it look a bit strange. So decided just to go with the solid walls. We had to modify this awning here. Just changed up the math from the original one. Just so it came out a little bit more, because we actually extended the roof as well. These are 1 stud wider than the original model. So we had to extend that out 1 stud. And then I also had to redo this because it was an open back and this was triangular shaped, but rather we made it a square, and I am missing 2 slopes, corner slopes in black for right there and there. Eventually I'll find some. But I had to make that a square rather than a triangle, just so it's complete 360 degrees like the rest of the model. And that's all built up with some of these textured bricks on the back. This sort of looks flat. Maybe I should build up these cheese slopes so the slopes come right up to the top there. I thought I would add some cool texture, but yeah, maybe that wasn't the right call. Maybe I should just bring those out and build up the cheese slopes so they go right up to this plate. That might look a little bit better, but once again, the backside is going to be pressed up against a mountain, so I'm not too worried about it. And in regards to the placement of it, of course, it's going to go on the mountain over here on this ridge, but it's on a tan plate. And what we need to do is maybe give it a little bit of a foundation. Like I removed all the rock work, but maybe there should be like 1 brick or even 2 bricks so we can get some slopes underneath it, and then reintegrate these staircases on either side. Sorry, my voice is still a bit scratchy from my sickness here. So my throat sort of hurts and I'm starting to drop things. But yeah, maybe we need to raise it up like a brick or something just to better landscape it into the mountain. And we definitely plan on doing that. So stay tuned for that. I don't know if I'm gonna do that today. This actually took quite a long time. But what we want to do too is have like water coming down, like waterfall, and a waterfall coming between the 2 temples and have this trickle down. I think that would be really cool because we have our Ninjago area right here. So if we can have a waterfall coming down, almost like this glacier or snow cap up here is melting and coming down between the 2 temples, that would be really sweet. Just wanted to get that dealt with before we started working on landscaping it, because landscaping it will sort of set it in stone. And then this one here, as I mentioned, just removed the bottom there. When you have a look at the original, you can see that there's like those rock panels and a bunch of arches and stuff along the bottom. And when you remove it, it makes it a lot shorter. So now it's not as tall as the mountain. And when we go about building the next mountain, of course, it's going to be taller. So it's going to give more of a backdrop right here. So it's going to make these temples look smaller as well. But it was definitely necessary. Reducing the size of these was definitely necessary, is what I meant to say there. Yeah, happy with that. So now I want to go about constructing the MILS work for the second mountain, because the MILS work right now is 2 plates that are 3 by 2 and 2 plates that are 2 by 2, but that's not going to work for the Mountain View Observatory, which is going to be in the center, because I don't want this huge heavy structure to be in the middle of 2 plates. That's just not going to work. So I've got to come up with a new structure for that, or like foundation for that, and then sort of go from there. This one's not done yet, but I just don't feel like doing more Lego surgery today. I'm sort of done with Lego surgery. It creates a big mess, and I want to get the foundation for that laid. So let's go. Mrs. Bricksie and I actually had a pretty long conversation about this layout, and this is what we came up with. I think this is going to be the best for accommodating this very heavy structure, that being the Mountain View Observatory, because it's going to go in the center, and this is 3 by 2 base plates right there. It's going to give us a lot of room for support and a lot of room for blending it into the center of the mountain. So we've got a really weird layout. It's like an L-shaped plate there. It's 3 base plates by like 2 base plates, and this is 2 and 1. This is 3 and 2, and 2 and 1. So it's a very strange layout, but I think this is going to be the best. Another layout that we could have done is 2 by 2s in each corner, and then a strip of 4 in the middle, and this centered amongst the strip of 4. But I think this is going to be more versatile. It's going to give us more room for play. So this is what we're going to run with. And the way that we actually came up with this was by using Excel. We were like, okay, this is boggling our mind. We need to sit down and use Excel. And as soon as we started using Excel, it became very clear to us that this was the best solution. Because of course, if this is sitting in the center, then we're going to have more room for play. Whereas if we did the strip in the middle, we'd have to build it exact. But now what we can do when we build this mountain is just start on the exterior and just build up and build up and build up, and then work our way toward the center and then deal with it once we get there. So rather than building the structure first this time, we're going to just start building. Just start laying brick and laying rock panel all the way around our perimeter and build up, rather than having the structure pre-made. So if we want to throw a 16 by 16 Technic plate, 4 bricks off the ground, or 6 bricks, or 8 bricks, or 1 support, 2 bricks, 2 plates, then we can do that. We're just going to freehand it this time rather than going in with the structure. But speaking of structure, I actually want to create a Technic structure for the Mountain View Observatory and bring it up to the height where we expect it to be, maybe, just to see if the Technic structure can support this, or if we need to think about creating a wood table that will support this plate, because that would save us a lot of parts. And this thing is really heavy. Of course, we can support it with Lego. You can support a lot of weight with Lego, but it might be safer and a little bit easier just to create a wood surface for this center plate. as long as I cut the legs to the perfect math of Lego. Okay, hear me out, everybody. If we can somehow make this mountain this tall, I think I would be happy with the end result. Although, with that said, you know, that's not much taller than this mountain. But you also have to include the Mountain View Observatory on top of that. So I created this Technic structure using these like supports and then 1x16 Technic bricks branching across onto 1x6 bricks and also 1x4 bricks on the side. They're all pinned in place and those stretch across this way. And then I went across with 1x16 bricks, just standard ones, and I actually put some bricks beside them and then tiled it off. So that sort of reinforces it nicely. I went with 4 supports here and the Technic structure in the middle, and then I put the 16x16 Technic panels right here. These are the art panels, pinned those together and topped it, and then went up another 2 supports. So that's a total of 6 supports and 2 of the 16x16 Technic panels. It's really tall, but you can see it's quite wobbly as well. I don't know how else I would make it not wobbly. Well, of course, when you like brick build up to it with panels and everything, you attach to this and that makes it not wobbly. Like this is built on the same thing, and as you can see, it's not wobbly. But just because it's the supports right now, it's wobbly. But I'm a little bit scared to place the Mountain View Observatory on top of that, but I want to see if it can handle it. I know it will, because it'll just be downward pressure. But maybe I should lean toward doing a wood structure at this point. But you know what? I wanted to test it out, and I wanted to see what it looks like when we place it on top. You can see the height difference from this side a lot better. There you go. Okay, I repositioned the plates and squared it up with the other mountain there. And that's like right in the center. And this thing here is actually a little bit larger than a base plate, so it'll have a little bit of overhang. And of course, when I move this module, I wouldn't move it with the Mountain View Observatory placed. I would place that on top afterwards. But if we could somehow get it up to that height, oh man, that would be so cool. That is pretty tall. Like that is way taller than this one here. I want to grab my measuring tape and see what the top of the observatory is at. And I almost need to double check my measurement on this one, because I said it was 27 inches in the last video. Yeah, that seems to be about right. So 27 inches plus 10 inches for the platform, 37. Doesn't seem that tall, but you know, it is tall. It's a big structure. It's the biggest mountain we've ever created. I think it might be the tallest one ever too, but it just doesn't seem that big. So if I measure up from the MILS plate, this one would be 44 inches tall to the top of the observatory. That's not bad, 44 inches. That's pretty tall. Now, am I going to have enough studs to work up to that height? Because we have a total of 64 studs here, and on this side we only have 48 studs, but we're going to be starting from this height and building up. So it's going to be quite vertical and a lot of inversions. So yeah, this is going to be a sick mountain. That's how tall I want to build it, just to give you a representation of how high. The Avengers Tower is the tallest building, and it is roughly 35 inches. So the Mountain View Observatory on the top of the mountain is at 55 inches when it's on the raised platform. So technically it's only 20 inches taller than the Avengers Tower. This just goes to show you how hard it is to build a really tall mountain when you're working with the scale of some of these massive Lego sets. Like this is the Avengers Tower out of the box. But the 20 inches makes a huge difference, because that's the Avengers Tower right there at 35, right? You see the tower that I put in the city right there? That is the height of the Mountain View Observatory. That's the height that it will be, 55. So when you compare the two, it's gonna be hard to see just because it's so small, but when you compare the two, you can see that it's going to be towering way over the city, especially when you come back here. It's definitely going to be a forced perspective where it looks way taller, even though it's only 20 inches taller. And when you compare that height to like the McAllister's house, for example, like you've got the McAllister's house right there, and then the height of that tower way up there in the clouds. And when you compare the height of it to, say, the Winter Village just in behind it, it is substantially taller. But when you're dealing with loop coasters, it is ridiculous how tall these sets are, right? Like it's hard to build a mountain taller than the loop coaster. So many parts goes into it. And it sure does give me, like when I try to build these mountains, it sure does give me an appreciation for the mountain in the Lego house that was, of course, built by Lego with unlimited parts. But just the sheer volume of parts and the size of the structure to build a mountain that tall in this studio, which is enormous, is a challenge, to say the least. You know, I've been planning to build these mountains for a long time, and did I expect it to be this demanding and consume this many parts? Yes, I did. I knew that it would be like this, so that's one of the reasons why it's got to go a little bit slower than you would expect, just because it consumes everything. Like it's pretty wild. It's awesome though. I cannot wait to see the Mountain View Observatory way up there in the sky. As I was mentioning earlier in this video, we ordered 122 of the corner rock panels, and I think we're gonna have to order more because the rock panels are gonna be essential for getting up to that height. It's just gonna be essential. It's gonna make it economical and also make it efficient as well. But what we're gonna have to do is use the green brick, taper this green out and head this way, and eventually top that with gray, and then start going up with the rock panels. That's why we wanted these to be 90-degree turns, because now it's gonna be easier for us to shape the corners. We wouldn't want this forward base plate segment to be a straight line there, because then we'd have a weird connection point. So that's why we went with the 90-degree corners there. And we're gonna do that all the way around and also do that over here. So we're gonna have to start tapering this way to get to the exterior as quickly as possible so that we can build up. But with that said, we also don't want to turn this into a square, which is gonna be very easy to do if you're focusing on height. So we're gonna have to use some inversions and stuff like that. One thing that's throwing off the building process up here, believe it or not, is the tables. We have a huge table system set up here today. And the problem is with using these tables is they're not perfectly level. It's one of the reasons why I got rid of this table system when we used to use them for the Lego City, because we would always find it wouldn't be perfectly level because these tables would actually bow in the middle. For example, we have this big table here and it's starting to bow in the middle because there's not a whole lot of support in the middle. So that's why I put some cardboard under there to try and separate this gap here. Because if you have a slight height difference between the tables or the surface that you're working on, it can throw the whole model off. If you're off by like half a plate or a plate, well, then you're running into stability issues when you have these MILS plates. For example, the big one that the Mountain View Observatory is currently on, bridging onto two different tables that are at two different heights. So what I'm considering doing, and this might sound a little bit crazy, is stowing these tables away for now and actually using a bunch of spare lumber or just going to buy some cheap 2x4s and building a large table frame similar to what we did with the Lego City. And I can just put a big table frame up here and top it with some spare sheets of melamine that I have. And then we have a massive surface, and I would actually create it shorter as well. I wouldn't have the legs at this height. I'd probably have them at like this height, because this thing is going to become so tall, it's going to be hard to work on. So I might create some sort of large table surface up here. I haven't decided yet, because I do like having it as smaller tables with wheels on them, because you can then wheel the tables around with the different modules. So yeah, we've got to figure out how we're going to build this logistically as well, because from that standpoint, it's a huge project and mind game as well. It's just so tall. Like, it's gonna be cool. I'm fired up. What an exciting day. Another thing too that sort of drives me nuts when we're filming videos like this is when I'm filming and panning around, you can see my mess. You know, you can see the build tables over there full of stuff and part bins laying around everywhere, and another project on the go over there, and you could, the big horde of sets. I wish we could do this with like an all white background on all four sides. It would just make it so much better, but that's just not realistic. Just sort of a side note from me there. Yeah, this is gonna be cool. Like, look how tall it is. It's awesome. I can't wait to build this thing. I'm glad that we're ready to go. This is not going to move until we start building it, and we can also start throwing down details on this. But glad we could modify these temples and prepare that for details. Just had to get that done before we start laying details, and also visualize how tall this is going to be in comparison to the other mountain. And also we saw it in the city there, which is pretty exciting. Hope you enjoyed this little vlog about mountains. Please don't like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Farewell.